Excellencies, distinguished delegates, High Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to declare open the 69th session of the Executive Committee of the High Commissioner's Program. A very warm greeting to all of you, and particularly to those of you who have traveled to Geneva from your capitals. I would also like to warmly welcome the distinguished delegation of Zimbabwe, which is participating in its first plenary session as an Executive Committee member state. Our committee, now composed of 102 members, continues to grow with broad geographic representation. This is welcome, given that the challenges facing UNHCR today are, more than ever, of a global nature, requiring broad and cohesive responses. The participation of this new member will further enrich our discussions and help us provide judicious advice and support to the High Commissioner and his office. Before we begin the formal program, I would like to say how privileged and honored I have been to preside over the Executive Committee of the High Commissioner's Program during the past 12 months. I have had the opportunity to see the important work that UNHCR is doing together with its committed partners, particularly during my field visit to Cox's Bazar of Bangladesh, which I undertook in my capacity as the ExCom chairperson. In Bangladesh, I was impressed with the dedication and enthusiasm of UNHCR staff. I witnessed how best host communities share their limited resources with the refugees. And I was reaffirmed on the fact that no matter how massive and serious the situation is, the solution always remains with resolving the root causes in a sincere and systematic manner. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, there are currently more than 68.5 million individuals around the world who have been forced from their homes due to conflict, persecution, violence, and human rights violations. Of these, an estimated 12.2 million people were newly displaced last year alone, as several new large-scale emergencies unfolded. This has exacerbated the global displacement situation and placed enormous challenges on the United Nations humanitarian organizations and their partners. At the same time, we have seen opportunities emerging, most notably in the context of the implementation of the New York Declaration and in the growing humanitarian development cooperation that has been showing increasingly results. Since our last meeting a year ago, we have met in informal and formal consultations together with a wide range of stakeholders to consider the gaps in the international refugee response and how we might better address them, taking into consideration the lessons learned from the practical application of the comprehensive refugee response framework. This rich consultations process led us to a global compact on refugees, which aims to ease the pressure on host countries and communities, enhance refugee self-reliance, expand access to third country solutions, and support the conditions for voluntary return in safety and dignity. Speaking from the vantage point of a country and a region which has much to offer in terms of lessons learned and much to gain from the proposed Global Compact on Refugees, I would like to take a moment to encourage states and other stakeholders to ensure sustained momentum moving forward, including through the endorsement of the Global Compact on Refugees in the General Assembly this fall and in anticipation of the first Global Refugee Forum next year. The role of the Executive Committee will be catalytic in this respect, and I look forward to the thoughts you will bring on this subject in our session this week. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I now invite the committee to consider the adoption of the provisional agenda as contained in document A/AC 96 LX-IX-1. As you know, this year the keynote speaker is Ms. Kristalina Georgieva, Chief Executive Officer of the World Bank. Unfortunately, as her flight to Geneva has been delayed, we will only hear from her at the beginning of this afternoon's meeting at 3 o'clock today. Thus, we will begin this morning with the High Commissioner's opening statement under Agenda Item 2. We will then launch the general debate, Agenda Item 3, at the close of which I will provide a brief summary of its key elements. Agenda Item 4 will permit us to review the results of the work of the Standing Committee over the past year in the areas of international protection and programme budget, management, financial control, and administrative oversight. Under Agenda Item 5, the Committee will review reports relating to programme and administrative oversight and evaluation. The Executive Committee will, under Agenda Item 6, review the biennial programme budget for 2018-2019 revised, and will then consider a draft general decision on administrative, financial and programme matters, including approval of the budget. Under Agenda Item 7, the rapporteur of the annual consultations with non-governmental organizations will deliver a brief report on the consultations, which took place in June. And under Agenda Item 8, UNHCR's Staff Council will make a statement to the committee. Agenda Item 9 concerns the programme of work of the Standing Committee in 2019, including observer participation for the intersessional period of the 17th session. Under Agenda Item 10, the Committee will consider the draft provisional agenda for the 17th session of the Executive Committee. Under Agenda Item 11, the Executive Committee will elect its officers to serve during the next intersessional period and until the end of the 17th plenary session. Following the election, the chairperson-elect will make a brief statement to the committee. Following Agenda Item 12, any other business, the last substantive item is Agenda Item 13, the adoption of the report of this session. The 69th plenary session will then end with closing remarks by the High Commissioner and myself under Agenda Item 14. Before commenting further on organizational matters, may I consider that the provisional agenda can be adopted? It is so decided. I would now like to say a few words about the speaking arrangements. The list of speakers for the general debate, Agenda Item 3, was opened on 3rd September, and the list was shared with the delegations on 27th September. Delegations has received an organizational note from the Secretariat outlining the procedures for any amendments to the list of speakers and are asked to follow them in order to facilitate the smooth running of the debate. As there will be no formal speakers list during the other items of the agenda to be taken up later in the week, delegations are invited to indicate their intention to speak by raising their nameplates. and the Secretariat will compile an informal list. Should a state or organization speaking on behalf of a group of states or group of organizations wish to make a statement, they should inform the Secretariat in person, well in advance of the relevant agenda item. I would like to recall that we are here because of our common desire to support those who have been forced to flee their homes and for our shared humanitarian values. With this in mind, I would like to emphasize the purely humanitarian and non-political nature of our discussions this week. Delegations are asked to limit their statements to 5 minutes. In the case of a country or organization representing a group of countries or organizations, 7 minutes will be allowed. I would like to appeal to everyone to keep their statements to the allotted time so that all delegations will have an opportunity to speak. Delegations are asked to maintain a normal speed when making their statements and to provide advance copies of their statements to the conference officers in the room to facilitate interpretation. Statements delivered during the general debate and under the item on international protection will be posted and webcast on the session website. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I would now like to invite you to view a short film entitled A Time for Resolve. With over 68.5 million people forcibly displaced around the world, new solutions are needed, along with fresh ideas and creative partnerships that can boost self-reliance among refugees and deepen support for the communities and countries hosting them. Let us take a look at what is at stake and what the way forward might look like.
A special school, a special situation. The children are deaf. Some are Lebanese, others are Syrian refugees. Learning together, playing together.
شو بتتعلم بالمدرسة؟ شو بتتعلم؟
Just a handful of countries, and far from the richest, have taken in the vast majority of refugees, helping millions find refuge from harm. But conflicts drag on, new ones erupt. Reaching safety is not enough. Refugees need more, a chance to learn and to earn, an opportunity to thrive, to give back to those who welcome them. New blueprints are needed, like the Global Compact on Refugees. It can transform lives, the lives of refugees and host communities alike. This solar farm in Jordan, built with German funds, can generate 12.9 megawatts of electricity. Enough to power the homes of refugees in Zatari camp for 12 hours each day.
When the camp ceases to exist, this will go back to the government and will benefit the host community and will benefit the whole energy production within Jordan.
The refugees wait. Their plight demands new ideas. The keys? Self-reliance, investment, and development. There's a role for everyone. New mobile phone masts, over 11 of them across northwest Uganda, the work of local phone companies. connectivity to improve the lives of Ugandans and refugees.
The only way to break the cycle of poverty is to bring financial inclusion into it.
On a larger scale, development actors like the World Bank are working hand in hand with UN organizations, supporting refugee needs.
My commitment is the following. We will provide an initial tranche of $480 million in grants for Bangladesh to support the Rohingya.
Development money for areas where refugees flee is essential. For years, too many refugees have had to put their lives on hold, confined to camps, unable to work or contribute to life around them. The new compact proposes a different way. Kalobeye settlement is part of the sprawling Kakuma camp in Kenya. Greater self-reliance is the goal, with refugees ready to contribute and fuel the local economy.
It is going to be a program that is going to be benefiting not only the refugees, giving them a home away from home, but equally providing support to the local host community.
An approach that works in big and small communities. In Zambia, the flow of refugees has brought investment, a new school, a new health clinic, a plant nursery that provides free seeds to both Zambians and refugees, and a marketplace for all. Refugee talent and determination put to good use. With training, a chance to learn, a means to earn, skills that refugees can use now and take home with them when peace returns.
I want to learn this as well, and for my future it will going to help me as well. Then I'm going to gain some experience, then I will open my own workshop.
In Syria, displaced students are attending courses to continue their education. Vocational training is also in place to help the returnees rebuild. Millions around the world uprooted by conflict and insecurity. The way forward requires more help, more resettlement places, more education. Soon, 8 more deaf refugee children will begin studying in this school. Their lives will change. And with a new deal for refugees, hopefully, so will the lives of millions of others.
I would like to thank those responsible for putting together these moving images. Let us keep in mind throughout the debate the children, women, and men who now urgently look to the governments, UNHCR, and other partners for protection, assistance, and solutions. They are counting on all of us for support. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I now propose to launch the general debate. In addition to having heard from the High Commissioner, delegations have received from UNHCR updates on regional developments and on global programs, which will inform our decisions. Turning to item number 2 of the agenda, it now gives me great pleasure to invite the High Commissioner, Mr. Filippo Grandi, to address the committee. Mr. Grandi, you have the floor.
Good morning, Madam Chair, dear Ambassador, it has been really a pleasure to work with you in the past year, and a special pleasure for me, as you know very well, you represent a country that is very close to my heart. And we have appreciated, to quote you back, your judicious advice and support. Ministers, distinguished delegates, and especially the delegates of the new member of ExCom Zimbabwe, ladies and gentlemen, I am at the midpoint of my mandate. I look back, and the state of the world does not look good. In the last 2.5 years, the principles and values of international cooperation have come under immense pressure. Internal conflicts have escalated, fueled by regional and global rivalries. Crises have intensified, driven by poverty, exclusion, and the growing impact of climate change. Governance failures have created space for extremists and criminals. The language of politics has become ruthless, giving license to discrimination, racism, and xenophobia. Refugees and migrants have become targets and casualties of power-driven agendas. Political leadership should strive to unite, but now too often prides itself on dividing. And the number of refugees globally has risen by almost 1/5, going beyond 25 million for the first time ever. Yet, amid so much adversity, multilateralism has held its ground. But as the Secretary General said in New York last week, we must reinvigorate it. I'm proud that we at UNHCR are part of this effort every day. I'm proud of what UNHCR has achieved through the immense dedication of my colleagues and our partners, and of course with your support. The New York Declaration too was a milestone, a political commitment at the highest level, grounded in international cooperation and refugee protection standards. And the Global Compact on Refugees charts a clear way forward through a stronger, fairer, better response model. This, I believe, is where multilateralism has strength, as a practical counterpoint to the rhetoric and electoral grandstanding that often pervades public debates on refugees and migrants. And as a rallying point for solidarity that places the dignity, rights and aspirations of refugees and their hosts at the center of a shared endeavor. When I took office in January 2016, global displacement was already at record levels. The Syrian crisis was in its 5th year, with the number of Syrian refugees approaching 5 million. Conflicts in Iraq and Yemen were escalating. Europe was struggling to chart a common response to the arrival of 1 million refugees and migrants. In Africa, a series of crises had recently affected Burundi, the Central African Republic, Nigeria and South Sudan, triggering large refugee movements. In northern Central America, a complex flow driven by poverty, exploitation and gang violence was gathering pace. Conflict in Ukraine had uprooted hundreds of thousands of people, and millions remain trapped in exile or internal displacement by protracted conflicts in Afghanistan, Colombia, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Somalia. Almost 3 years on, all these situations have continued to evolve. Some, as in South Sudan and Yemen, have escalated. Elsewhere, as in Syria, repeated military operations have led to massive waves of new displacement and return, with geopolitical shifts playing a pivotal role. Other situations, such as in Iraq and in the Lake Chad region, have moved towards greater stability, but without definitive resolution. New crises have emerged with harrowing consequences. A brutal security operation drove almost 700,000 Rohingya from Myanmar's Rakhine state into Bangladesh. Some 5,000 people are now leaving Venezuela daily, the largest population movement in Latin America's recent history. And thousands continue to cross the Sahel into Libya and across the central Mediterranean, driven by despair and exposed to unthinkable cruelty and dangers. Global forced displacement has climbed, reaching 68.5 million in 2017. 40 million of those are internally displaced. Neighboring countries have largely, although not invariably, kept their borders open, receiving and hosting refugees with generosity despite enormous constraints. Yet, further afield, often in rich countries, the trend is towards making it difficult for people to seek asylum, even by closing borders and pushing people away. Children separated from their parents, leaving psychological scars that will last a lifetime. Asylum seekers stranded at border fences or detained indefinitely, having committed no crime. Refugees dehumanized, treated as a commodity, passed from one state to another. Today, when I engage with the leaders of countries neighboring those in crisis, how am I to tell them to take more people when some in richer countries are discussing how to close their doors? In the first year of my mandate, we embarked on an ambitious exercise to chart key orientations to guide our work in the coming 5 years. The result was our strategic directions, including the core elements of protect, respond, include, empower, and solve. Let me review them briefly. Over the last 3 years, our work to protect has remained grounded in international standards. But to be an effective custodian of principles, we need to show practical ways of applying them. Protection work, preserving human dignity and rights for refugees, and access to asylum has given rise to new complexities in the context of today's increasingly mixed flows. The movement of refugees and migrants from Africa through Libya, for example, has presented very difficult challenges. Libya itself is the theater of a conflict where solutions continue to be elusive. Meanwhile, international concerns have focused on reducing arrivals in Europe. The Libyan Coast Guard has been reinforced, but not other institutions. And boats carrying migrants and refugees are brought back to Libyan shores. That means more and more people exposed to exploitation and detention in horrific conditions. The first priority clearly is an all-out effort to bring stability back to Libya. Meanwhile, emergency solutions must be pursued. The Abidjan Agreement between the African and European Unions and the United Nations offered a good framework in which IOM and UNHCR have been able to operate. IOM by helping thousands of migrants return home, and UNHCR trying to evacuate the most vulnerable refugees whilst getting people out of detention. Close to 1,850 asylum seekers and refugees have now been flown to safety so far, mostly to Niger, with the aim of onward resettlement. Many partners have mobilized. I am especially grateful to the government of Niger and to the 15 countries that have offered resettlement places. But working in Libya continues to be extremely dangerous, and insecurity limits our scope of action. With tens of thousands of asylum seekers and refugees in the country and numbers rising, more solutions are needed, and quickly. Alternatives to detention in Libya, other evacuation options, more and faster resettlement, genuine, targeted investments in countries of asylum and transit, and of course tackling much more strategically and with substantive resources the root causes of these movements, especially conflicts and significant development challenges. Preserving asylum in Europe remains equally crucial. Recent events in the Mediterranean have been deeply troubling. More than 1,700 people have died or gone missing while trying to reach Europe's shores this year. Rescue at sea, a marker of our shared humanity, has been taken hostage by politics. Responsibility sharing has been replaced by responsibility shedding. So rescue at sea must be restored. Pushing people away cannot be the answer, and negotiating disembarkation boat by boat, even when successful, is not a good option. Together with IOM, we have offered a concrete, practical proposal for a regional disembarkation arrangement. This would complement the much-needed reform of the common European asylum system. The outflow of Venezuelans across Latin America and beyond is another example of protection challenges amidst complex population flows. With more than 2.6 million people now outside the country, a non-political and humanitarian approach is essential to help states receiving them in growing numbers. I welcome the regional approach adopted in the Quito Declaration and commend states in the region for keeping their borders open and providing access to asylum or alternative legal stay arrangements. Yet more work is needed on ensuring regional coherence in the protection response. We know that more operational support is also needed. Again, working with IOM has been crucial. We have established a regional interagency coordination platform, and we have appointed a joint special representative, Eduardo Stein, who will work with governments and partners to build regional alliances and foster support for hosting countries. Our second strategic direction committed us to respond quickly, reliably, and effectively in emergencies, laying the ground for solutions from early on. The massive outflow of refugees into Bangladesh last year called for an all-of-UNHCR response. Refugees who had endured unspeakable hardship and trauma arrived destitute and in shock. Local people were the first ones to respond, with profound generosity and compassion. And as the monsoon season approached, the government of Bangladesh steered a large-scale emergency preparedness exercise together with humanitarian partners, national and international NGOs, and refugees themselves. This was relatively successful. Shelters were strengthened, bridges built and reinforced, new land made ready, and tens of thousands of people relocated. This massive effort reaffirmed what we're collectively capable of when people desperately need our help. We now require investments in medium-term arrangements in Bangladesh to reinforce economic opportunities, local infrastructure, and essential services for refugees and host communities. The World Bank and the Asian Development Bank must be thanked for their contributions. But solutions to this crisis lie in Myanmar. Its root causes, including entrenched discrimination, arbitrary denial of citizenship, and lack of development, must be addressed. And addressing them is the responsibility of the government of Myanmar. Together with UNDP, we have signed a memorandum of understanding to support the government in this work. Phase 1 of the planned assessments has been conducted, but access remains slow and constrained. Phase 2 must urgently start. The government of Myanmar must show the commitment required to bring far-reaching changes. These are necessary to build the confidence of refugees that they have a safe and dignified future back in Myanmar. Improving conditions for the Rohingyas still in Rakhine State, granting freedom of movement, and pursuing suitable solutions for internally displaced people would be compelling first steps. This crisis has proven that humanitarian action is crucial to save lives, but a broader solidarity approach encompassing bilateral and multilateral development aid and supporting sustainable solutions is equally needed. In Syria, too, we need to retain the ability to respond with the flexibility to adapt to new developments. We must hope that recent agreements regarding the situation in Idlib will prevent further massive loss of lives and forced displacement. And as the conflict continues to evolve, the prospect of refugee returns has emerged prominently in discussions around the future of the country. Let me be clear. Refugees have the fundamental right to return home in safety and dignity at a time of their choosing. We support all action that contributes to the full exercise of that right. Free and informed decisions are key, as is action by those responsible to remove obstacles to return. This position is not dictated by political circumstances. It is consistent with established international standards and with our position on refugee return elsewhere. More than 750,000 Syrian internally displaced people are estimated to have returned home this year, particularly to areas where destruction has been contained. But the number of refugee returns has been low, less than 1% of refugees last year and even fewer in 2018. The direction the conflict takes in the coming months and the way in which hostilities are conducted will be important factors in decision-making by refugees. Security, they tell us, is a big concern, along with basic needs, shelter, health care, education for the children and jobs. But they have also other concerns of a legal and administrative nature, civil documentation, conscription, land and property, amnesties, and for some citizenship issues. Unfettered access by UNHCR and humanitarian agencies will be critical to help build confidence. We're engaging with the government of Syria on these matters and providing legal support with civil documentation as part of humanitarian and reintegration assistance given to those returning. But we must not forget that neighboring countries host 5.6 million Syrian refugees across the region and will continue to do so. Donors have been generous, but funding and resettlement places are insufficient, and I'm worried by signals of declining support. Commitments made at recent conferences in London and Brussels must be fully honoured and sustained. And in this context, two general points must also be made. Cash-based interventions are playing an important role in countries hosting Syrian refugees and elsewhere. This year we're providing cash in 100 operations globally, up from 42 in 2015, with a total value of $500 million. Not only does this require donor support, but it calls as well for increased cooperation with other organizations engaged in cash-based interventions, especially the World Food Programme. We're working on that. Supporting Syrians illustrate also the synergies between UNHCR's refugee responsibilities and our engagement with the internally displaced. Stepping up that engagement was an important commitment in the strategic directions. I would like us to develop the same reflexes in situations of internal displacement that we have for refugees. In 2017, we completed an operational review, and we're now working on policies, preparedness and early engagement, data management, and building versatility and specialization in our workforce. We're also working with OCHA and partners in the Interagency Standing Committee to develop more coherent approaches oriented towards solutions. We now lead or co-lead 24 of 26 protection clusters in the field, working to have protection as an overarching objective in humanitarian operations. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, for example, we stepped up our capacity in protection and shelter in Kasai, South Kivu and Tanganyika as political violence continues to drive massive internal displacement and to prompt significant cross-border movements. Our third and fourth strategic directions, include and empower, have taken center stage in a transformation which Kristalina Georgieva, who was supposed to be with us this morning, will speak about this afternoon, and which has been accelerated by the application of the Comprehensive Refugee Response Framework. The leadership and expertise of the World Bank have helped trigger a fundamental change in how development entities engage with large-scale refugee flows and internal displacement. We begin to have a deeper understanding of the development challenges posed by displacement, especially when this becomes protracted. We are keen to collaborate on a joint data center which will be established soon in Copenhagen. The World Bank is also paving the way in developing innovative financial instruments that build the resilience of refugees and their hosts, partnering with states and UNHCR to leverage their potential and facilitate refugee inclusion. The IDA 18 refugee sub-window and the Global Concessional Financing Facility are truly trailblazing. Millions of refugees and members of local communities stand to benefit from the resources being made available. But other investments by bilateral development entities and regional and international financial institutions are also growing. Notable examples include the work of the European Commission, Japan, Germany, the United Kingdom, as well as the African Development Bank, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and the Inter-American Development Bank. Through these collective efforts, some $6.5 billion of development funding has been mobilized in support of refugees and their hosts, a substantial expression of solidarity. Now we must ensure that resources are disbursed rapidly and programs implemented. The full effects will take time to emerge, but some changes are already visible. These resources, I wish to stress, are and must remain additional to humanitarian funding. Humanitarian action, in fact, will remain vital. I am deeply grateful for the strong confidence that UNHCR continues to receive from its donors. Funds available this year are estimated to reach again $4.5 billion. I wish to thank the United States, the European Union and Germany for their particularly strong support, and Sweden, the United Kingdom, Norway and the Netherlands for providing critical, substantive, unearmarked funding. However, the gap between requirements and available resources continues to grow and will reach 45% this year. A few more thoughts on include and empower. Too often we see sobering examples of refugees and asylum seekers being excluded and pushed away. Sometimes these have overshadowed a quieter yet profound transformation in which decades of keeping refugees apart, consigned to camps or on the margins of society are giving way to a fundamentally different approach of including refugees in national systems and the societies and economies of their host countries for the time that it is necessary, and enabling them to contribute to their new communities and secure their own futures pending a solution to their plight. I wish to acknowledge the many states which have taken humane and sometimes courageous decisions to review their laws and policies, reinforce refugee rights, expand access to national programs, labour markets and social protection systems. The private sector is also playing a prominent role, along with faith groups, sport organizations and cities. There has been important progress on financial inclusion, as the financial sector increasingly recognizes that refugees offer a viable market for services, such as bank accounts, business loans, remittance and savings facilities. The comprehensive refugee response framework has provided a vehicle for these efforts in the 15 countries where it has been applied, and will grow in significance as an integral part of the Global Compact on Refugees. At the General Assembly last week, there was a notable focus on refugee education. Here there has been progress, thanks to the many states who have open access to their national systems, and to innovative initiatives such as the Global Partnership for Education and Education Cannot Wait, that have mobilized the resources and support. These investments must be sustained and accelerated. Primary school enrollment for refugee children rose from 50% in 2015 to 61% in 2017, but this is still far below the global rate of 92%. 1 million refugee children who were previously out of school have now been enrolled in primary education through our Educate a Child program, supported by the Education Above All Foundation. In tertiary education, Germany's valuable DAFI program has almost tripled in size in the last 3 years, and digital learning platforms such as the Instant Schools Network are also playing an increasingly significant role. Our final core strategic direction relates to the search for solutions. Sadly, paths to solutions are becoming more and more complicated. Peace is seldom achieved in a thorough, complete way, and where greater stability emerges, this is often linked to military or security operations that are not always accompanied by measures that address root causes. Pursuing a constellation of solutions and building the resilience that can pave the way towards these are important aspects of the comprehensive refugee response model. These have inspired its regional application to Somali displacement by IGAD, and in Northern Central America through the approach agreed upon in San Pedro Sula last year, the MIRPS. This has also proven to be adaptable to new contexts, including a recent outflow of Nicaraguans in this region. Attention to other protracted situations, including Afghanistan, must also be sustained. On a recent visit, for example, I saw how the countries in the region are taking important steps to look at Afghan displacement in a holistic manner with a renewed interest in solutions. I welcome recent developments in the Horn of Africa, including dialogue between Eritrea and Ethiopia, and hope that they will act as a catalyst also towards finding solutions to displacement in the region. In South Sudan, the revitalized peace agreement reopens the door for some hope. International attention must be sustained. The rights and perspectives of refugees and the internally displaced considered as part of the peace process. I was encouraged to learn that the President of South Sudan signed last week the instrument that will pave the way to accession to the 1951 Convention and 1967 Protocol. We were also pleased to facilitate a dialogue in Khartoum between South Sudanese refugee representatives and signatories of the peace agreement. It is important that this dialogue continues as part of the effort to avoid a new catastrophic failure of peace. Resettlement, too, must be restored and reinforced as a tool for solutions and an instrument for international responsibility sharing. The drop in available places is of deep concern. We need to seize this moment to make resettlement a truly global instrument, engaging as many states and communities as possible. Creative efforts like the Global Refugee Sponsorship Initiative are welcome in this regard. And we must also boldly follow through on our commitment to end statelessness. I was delighted to be present in New York when Spain acceded to the 1961 Convention on Statelessness. And I also wish to congratulate Haiti, which acceded to both statelessness conventions last week. This makes 20 accessions since the launch of the campaign. Next year, we will mark the midpoint in the 10-year I Belong campaign through a high-level event at ExCom to take stock of achievements and encourage progress, including through specific pledges. Ladies and gentlemen, pursuing our strategic directions requires UNHCR to adapt to new dynamics and opportunities, including those presented by the Global Compact on Refugees. This relies first and foremost on flexibility and agility in the field, and is why, as you know, we initiated a new reform process in 2016. The first changes to realign headquarters functions in support of the field are well underway. We established a new division of resilience and solutions, reconfigured our partnership and communication functions, and are transforming our human resources capacities. We're now about to embark on a decisive new phase, moving towards a truly decentralized model in the course of next year. Its main purpose will be to build strong, empowered country offices by moving authority closer to the point of delivery, while remaining coherent and effective in upholding refugee protection principles and standards. Regional bureaus will be moved from Geneva to their respective regions and redesigned and equipped to provide effective support and oversight to country operations. Key systems and processes will be realigned and simplified to devolve further authority to the field. At headquarters, executive management, supported by streamlined functional divisions, will ensure leadership, global coherence and guidance. And I take this opportunity to say how grateful I am to the Deputy and Assistant High Commissioners for helping me shoulder this responsibility. Over the next 3 months, we will develop a roadmap to take these decisions forward, including costing and other aspects that are of interest to you. We will continue to consult in a transparent manner as we move forward. This work is in line with our strong commitment to the grand bargain. It is also in sync with broader UN reforms. As part of this commitment, I'm proud to chair the Business Innovations Group, the BIG, together with the Executive Director of the World Food Programme. The BIG is the fastest moving and most concrete piece of the UN reform. We're striving to transform UN business operations and back offices to create efficiencies and refocus resources on our core work. UNHCR is also a value-based agency with a strong commitment to integrity. But, as you know, we operate in fluid, high-risk environments in which the potential for fraud, corruption, exploitation and abuse is sometimes heightened. We have experienced recent instances in which the actions of some colleagues and some partners have fallen short of our principles and values. This has very harmful consequences for the people we serve and the credibility and legitimacy of our programs. I am firmly committed to tackling fraud, corruption and other forms of misconduct robustly, transparently and effectively. And this starts with prevention. At last year's ExCom, I announced the launch of our Risk Management 2.0 initiative. This temporarily embeds additional risk management expertise in selected operations to help strengthen systems for identifying and managing risk, build the integrity of our programs and address root causes. The approach is now being rolled out in 6 countries this year. We have continued also to improve our oversight architecture, including through new strategic oversight capacity in the Inspector General's office. We have intensified our emphasis on ethical conduct in UNHCR, striving to embed values such as tolerance, respect, diversity, gender equality into our institutional culture and personal attitudes. As awareness has grown with more allegations being filed, the system has also been reinforced in response to the increased volume of complex investigations. Tackling sexual exploitation and abuse and sexual harassment has been a key pillar of this work, and the senior coordinator is now steering these efforts across UNHCR. Alongside other measures, we have instituted an independent review of policies and processes, strengthened protection against retaliation, and launched a new Speak Up helpline. Allegations of sexual misconduct are prioritized and assigned to trained investigators. We're working closely with partner agencies. In June next year, I will succeed Henrietta Fore, the Executive Director of UNICEF, as the Interagency Standing Committee champion on sexual exploitation and abuse and sexual harassment. I am personally committed to steering real change on these matters. Together with senior colleagues, we're taking every opportunity to convey that sexual misconduct has no place in our organization and that our working environment must not be defined by the use of power, which legitimizes abuse, but by the exercise of authority, which is founded on respect. Now, before I conclude, back to where I started, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen, the crucial importance of international cooperation. We have undertaken an important journey together in developing the Global Compact on Refugees. I wish to thank you all for your diligence and commitment, and for our rich exchanges over months of consultations. The final document reflects a realistic balance of the interests and aspirations of hosting countries, of donors, and of others, and is informed by decades of experience in addressing refugee crisis. As we move towards its validation by the General Assembly, let me make an important plea. When the time comes, and given your investment in crafting the Global Compact, I very much hope you will welcome and strongly endorse it as the culmination of our collective efforts. This will add to the strength and credibility of the Compact. And that strong spirit of partnership will be vital too as we start implementing it in 2019. When adopted, this historic compact will be the first of its kind in more than half a century, a powerful expression of multilateralism in today's fragmented world. For too long, refugee hosting countries have borne the brunt of what is a collective responsibility, and too many refugees have had their lives on hold, confined to camps, just scraping by, unable to flourish or contribute. The Compact recognizes that in delivering protection and support, host countries and their citizens act on behalf of us all, delivering a global public good, contributing to regional and international peace and security, helping refugees find a renewed sense of stability, easing the quest for solution. The Compact is a rallying point for humane, practical people from all parts of society, ready to express their solidarity through concrete actions, like the citizens of Cox's Bazar, providing the first assistance to Rohingya refugees. The people of Valencia, welcoming in their thousands the survivors of the Aquarius. The Ugandans, sharing farmland with refugees. Granting asylum is one of the most ancient and shared gestures of solidarity in the history of humankind. It has helped save lives, build and rebuild nations, and preserve our sense of humanity. The Compact will help us translate the values upholding this noble tradition into concrete measures, shielded from the vagaries of politics, adapted to our challenging world. It will be up to all of us to make it work, to ensure that its promise becomes a reality for the millions who are counting on it. Thank you.
Thank you, High Commissioner, for the statement, which provides rich material for reflection and discussion in our general debate. Distinguished delegates, Excellencies, I now open the floor for the general debate. I would like to reiterate that our discussion is purely humanitarian and non-political in nature. I also remind delegations to limit their statements to 5 minutes, please. In the case of a country or organization representing a group of countries or group of organizations, 7 minutes will be allowed. I will give the floor to High Commissioner to respond after every 10 statements or so. I would like to call upon the distinguished delegation from Uganda, who speaks on behalf of the African group, to take the floor. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Your Excellency, the High Commissioner, the Chairperson, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Uganda has the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of Africa Group. The group takes note of and appreciates the statement by the High Commissioner of Refugees. The group statements, the group commends UNHCR and its partners for all their tireless efforts in responding to the needs of the persons of concern to the UNHCR across the world. We pay tribute to all UNHCR staff who risk their lives daily in dangerous and secure environments to extend international protection to all persons of concern. The group condemns deliberate attacks on humanitarian workers, however, wherever they take place, and urge all actors to refrain from such actions. The group believes that comprehensive response to persons of concern cannot be achieved without concerted international response. Currently, developing countries host about 85% of the world's refugee population. Of those, the largest total refugee population is hosted in the African continent. African countries continue to leave their doors open to those seeking refuge amidst existing national funding challenges. The report on UNHCR operations in Africa indicates that as at the end of August 2018, the voluntary contributions received from the activities on the continent represented only 18% of the needs in the region. Chairperson, only 48% of the budget was funded in 2017, leaving 51% of the needs funded. This is of great concern to the group, considering that the region continues to host the largest numbers of persons of concern to the organization. The current funding to the region is not proportionate to the persons of concern hosted in the region. Considering the spirit and intent of the GCR, which will be adopted later this year, the 3% reduction in the budget of Africa for the year 2019 is unsettling. This does not match the generosity of host countries in the region. To this end, the group expresses concern for lack of sufficient information from the UNHCR on the basis of the reduction of the budget. As a result of this chronic underfunding, UNHCR is forced to prioritize the immediate life-saving activities over sustainable activities and solutions needed on the continent. This has affected humanitarian response in many sectors, including healthcare, environment, education, potable water supply, food and shelter, which has led to disquietness in some refugee settlements. International protection accorded to the refugees should include provision of stability, which enables displaced persons to preserve their dignity, but without the requisite budgetary resources, the response falls short of the minimum requirements for the displaced persons who are dependent on humanitarian assistance. We would like to recall that the principles of international cooperation and solidarity are at the core of the international protection regime and should continue to guide our collective response to persons of concern. The burden of the refugees should not be disproportionately borne by the few host states, neighboring conflict areas. In this regard, we should appreciate an increase of tangible commitments from the international community to provide increased, regular, flexible and predictable funding to respond to the needs of refugees and their host communities in Africa. Chairperson, the group takes note of initiatives undertaken by the Secretariat to try and address this funding gap on refugee response by the organization. We welcome the initiatives taken to broaden the donor support base, including by mobilizing the private sector and development actors. The broadening of the support base to include development actors in the refugee response is a welcome development. In addition, the group welcomes the recognition in the Global Compact of Refugees that development assistance intended for persons of concern should be additional to existing humanitarian assistance and the development assistance available to realize national priorities. In that regard, the group would like to extend its appreciation to the World Bank for the additional assistance extended to the number of host states in the region from the IDA 18 sub-window for refugees and host communities. The group is also reliably informed that there are grants besides the soft loans available under IDA 18 sub-window. Therefore, we would appreciate some information about how much has so far been disbursed to the host countries. On this note, Chair, the group reiterates the commitment of the New York Declaration and commends UNHCR for the transparent and inclusive manner in which the consultation process for the development of global impact for refugees was conducted. The group looks forward to implementation of the GCR and believes that its success will rely on the symmetrical implementation of all objectives. Chairperson, the Global Compact for Refugees provides for the number of arrangements aimed at equitably sharing the burden and responsibility for refugees with host states. The group looks forward to the translation of this arrangement into actual assistance to fill the recurrent gap in international response. Chair, the African group is concerned with the increased reports of xenophobia towards persons of concern to the UNHCR. Xenophobic tendencies shrink the space for international protection. In this regard, we would urge the UNHCR to explore ways to aim at assisting states addressing this problem. The group attaches great importance to the 1951 Convention on the Status of the Refugees and is encouraged that 148 states are now parties to one or both. In addition, the African group takes note of the importance of the 1961 Convention on Reduction of Statelessness. In this regard, the group supports the campaign to end the statelessness by 2024. Regarding CRRF, eight countries in the region are currently part of the rollout countries implementing the CRRF, with The adoption of the GCR later this year and eventual implementation of CRF to other countries in the global refugee response, it will be important that the UNHCR pays keen attention to the issue of funding. The generosity of the host countries implementing the GCRF under the New York Declaration should be matched by those of the international community. The group welcomes UNHCR engagement with the countries of origin in support for conditions for safe and dignified sustainable return. In particular, we welcome support provided to returnees to facilitate their return. Chairperson, the group expresses its grave concern with the reduction of settlement space. We are convinced that, in addition to voluntary repatriation and local integration, settlement remains the most durable solution for refugees. In this regard, therefore, we call upon settlement countries to increase the number of settlement places and to encourage other countries to initiate settlement programs. In conclusion, the group believes that addressing the root causes of flight will be the most important way to permanently solve or resolve the problem of refugees and other persons of concern. Therefore, we welcome efforts and encourage initiatives towards finding solutions to the root causes of forced displacement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, His Excellency. The floor is now with the distinguished representative of the European Union, who is speaking on behalf of the EU and its member states. Excellency, you have the floor.
I have the honor to speak on behalf of the European Union and its member states, and I would like to point out also that the candidate countries have aligned themselves with my statement. Madam Chair, it has been yet another challenging year for the Office of the UN High Commissioner, providing assistance and protection to the growing number of forcible displaced persons around the world. As you have already highlighted, High Commissioner, we have witnessed important new displacements, including from Myanmar, Venezuela and several Central African countries, while other displacement situations like Syria have become more and more protected. And in our own region, we continue to see a steady flow of mixed movements across the Mediterranean Sea to Europe. In our globalized world, forced displacements can only be addressed effectively in and by the international community as a whole. It is a global phenomenon that requires global solutions. Developing countries continue to host the vast majority of refugees and bear the brunt of the forced displacements. It is evident that we cannot continue to go on working as if it was business as usual. We therefore fully support your call, High Commissioner, for a more equitable and predictable burden and responsibility sharing, as stipulated in the New York Declaration and its annexed comprehensive refugee response framework. Since the adoption of the New York Declaration, the application of the CRRF has already generated positive and concrete results for host countries and communities, but more importantly also for refugees themselves. We're heartened by more and many examples of laws, policies and practices that have changed for both and that lead to a better outcome for both refugees and their host communities, while also making refugees better prepared for possible return and reintegration. The CRRF has been a catalyst for real change in several countries, and we, the European Union and its member states, commend the countries applying the CRRF for their leadership and generosity, and we will stand by their side. To do our part, the European Union is applying the CRRF approach in our external action and has launched multi-annual development actions amounting to €250 million in CRRF countries, and in 2017 provided more than €700 million of non-humanitarian assistance to the world's major host countries. This is in addition to the EU humanitarian assistance and the financial support of the EU member states. We also remain strong supporters of the regional approaches to strengthen cooperation in this field. The EU Regional Trust Fund in response to the Syrian crisis and the Facility for Refugees in Turkey together have mobilized €7.5 billion with substantial contribution from EU member states. We look very much forward to the endorsement of the Global Compact on Refugees by the General Assembly later this year. It will be an important paradigm shift towards a new global way of working on refugee protection and solutions. We commend very much the UNHCR for the inclusive, transparent and comprehensive process that led to the development of the Compact. However, this is only the beginning of the process. The implementation of the Global Compact is key and will require the UNHCR to continue to build new partnerships with development actors, the private sector, civil society, as well as strengthen its engagement with host countries, communities and refugees themselves. It will require a mind shift within UNHCR to focus more on collective efforts and long-term development-oriented responses. UNHCR must be the leading voice and catalyst for refugee protection in a wider and more diverse system. Madam Chair, although the Global Compact focuses on refugee situations, we must not forget that the majority of the world's forcibly displaced people are indeed internally displaced persons, who can often be even more vulnerable. And UNHCR has an important role in the broader humanitarian response to help and assist IDPs, and we very much recommend it for its efforts to strengthen that response in situations of internal displacement. While moving ahead with a more comprehensive response to refugee situations, we must also redouble our efforts to tackle the root causes of forced displacement. And you mentioned in your speech, Mr. High Commissioner. With regard to the Syrian crisis, the EU maintains that Syrian refugees have the right to return to their country of origin, Syria, and that voluntary and sustainable return in safety and with dignity is the preferred durable solution. The EU fully supports the ongoing work of UNHCR and its assessment that, given the current circumstances, the required conditions for organised voluntary repatriation of Syrian refugees are not in place. Until such return can take place, we will continue to support all efforts to ensure protection of refugees in the region. Madam Chair, we continue to work for a more equitable burden and responsibility sharing within our own region. And you mentioned that also in your address, High Commissioner. As part of these efforts, concluding the reform of the common European asylum system remains central. The new system needs to strike the right balance between responsibility and solidarity and ensure also resilience to future crises. As part of these efforts, the EU and its member states are working on establishing an EU resettlement framework. To note that since 2015, ad hoc EU resettlement programmes have already helped 38,000 of the most vulnerable refugees find protection in European countries, and further commitments have been made towards the resettlement of at least 50,000 people in 2018 and 2019. Resettlement is also one of the key elements of the EU-Turkey agreement of March 2016, which should continue to be fully implemented. The EU and its member states are the largest contributor to the emergency transit mechanism for persons evacuated from Libya to Niger also. In addressing the complex and dangerous situation of mixed movements across the Mediterranean Sea to Europe, saving lives remains a priority for the European and its member states. We remain involved in search and rescue operations and are working in close cooperation with relevant third countries and other parties and partners to find ways to ensure that those rescued are disembarked in a safe and responsible manner in accordance with international law. Our endeavour is ensuring that all states fulfil their international obligations, and we appreciate very much the constructive dialogue and engagement of UNHCR and IOM in addressing the situation. If we all effectively share responsibilities and demonstrate solidarity on both sides of the Mediterranean, we will be able to ensure the necessary degree of predictability in saving lives at sea. In addition, it is equally important to effectively dismantle the business model of smugglers and traffickers as a crucial element of our joint effort in preventing loss of life. Madam Chair, in order to adapt to the new ways of working under the Global Compact on Refugees and to be prepared to address current and future challenges, UNHCR must continue to be vigilant in keeping its own house in good shape. We urge UNHCR to continue to invest in its change initiative to ensure that the organisation is more innovative, effective, efficient, agile and accountable. And let me conclude by reiterating the full support by the European Union and its member states to you, High Commissioner, and to the dedicated staff of the UNHCR, as the voice and the catalyst for the protection of refugees and forcibly displaced persons wherever they are. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The floor is now with the distinguished representative of Colombia, who speaks on behalf of GRULAC.
Señora Presidenta, Colombia tiene el honor de hacer esta declaración en nombre del Grupo de Países de América Latina y del Caribe, GRULAC. Agradecemos al Alto Comisionado para los Refugiados su discurso inicial e igualmente manifestamos nuestro agradecimiento a su oficina por los completos informes presentados para esta 69ª sesión del Comité Ejecutivo. Según datos del ACNUR, el 85% de los refugiados y solicitantes de la condición de refugio son acogidos en países en desarrollo con capacidades y recursos limitados. Por esta razón, reiteramos el principio de distribución equitativa de la carga como la piedra angular para lograr una respuesta global, efectiva, estable y predecible a este fenómeno. Consideramos necesario que los países de origen, tránsito y destino cooperemos a la luz del principio de responsabilidad internacional compartida y conforme a nuestras obligaciones internacionales, teniendo en cuenta nuestras respectivas realidades, niveles de desarrollo y capacidades nacionales. Las soluciones solo pueden alcanzarse cuando trabajamos juntos. El ACNUR resulta un socio fundamental para garantizar la continua aplicación de este principio en el marco de su mandato humanitario. Los países de América Latina y el Caribe reafirmamos nuestra larga y generosa tradición de brindar protección a quienes lo necesitan. En este sentido, queremos resaltar que los países de nuestra región han respetado el principio de no devolución y han mantenido una política de fronteras abiertas. Este espíritu de solidaridad está consagrado desde la Declaración de Cartagena de 1984 e inspira nuestras políticas en materia de refugio. Asimismo, teniendo en cuenta que el 52% de los refugiados a nivel global son niños y niñas, queremos resaltar los esfuerzos de los países de la región realizan y continúan realizando para que prevalezca el interés superior del niño y se respete y garantice la figura de la reunificación familiar. Hacemos un llamado para que la protección de los niños, niñas y adolescentes sea una prioridad en la respuesta de los países en el contexto del pleno respeto de sus derechos humanos. Consideramos de suma importancia que la ACNUR continúe apoyando a los países en la formulación de soluciones duraderas, como la repatriación voluntaria, la reintegración, la integración social, el reasentamiento y las vías complementarias frente al fenómeno de desplazamiento multicausal, con el fin de atender las necesidades de las personas de interés, incluyendo refugiados, solicitantes de refugio, apátridas y personas internamente desplazadas. Hacemos un llamado para que ACNUR trabaje de manera coordinada con otras agencias del sistema en esta tarea, en el marco de sus respectivos mandatos, y abogamos para que sean colocados más recursos en el conjunto de estas soluciones. Hacemos un llamado para que la respuesta proporcionada por los países donantes mediante los compromisos asumidos sea flexible, predecible y sin condicionalidades, facilitando de esta manera el trabajo de ACNUR. Los países de América Latina y el Caribe tomamos nota de los retos y dificultades que el ACNUR enfrenta en el cumplimiento de su mandato y nos comprometemos a seguir apoyando a la agencia para incrementar la eficiencia de sus operaciones en el terreno, mejorar la coordinación con sus socios y fomentar estrategias innovadoras que respondan a un contexto de recursos escasos. Señora Presidenta, tras la adopción de la Declaración de Nueva York bajo el liderazgo de ACNUR, todos los estados y otros socios clave hemos estado comprometidos en un diálogo constructivo, sostenido y transparente en torno a la formulación del Pacto Global para los Refugiados. Este esfuerzo colectivo es la respuesta internacional al cada vez más complejo fenómeno del desplazamiento forzado, estructurada en torno al principio de la solidaridad y cooperación internacional. Consideramos que la conclusión del programa de acción del Pacto Global no es la culminación del proceso iniciado por la Declaración de Nueva York, sino el principio de un esfuerzo conjunto que debe generar compromisos concretos y el cual debemos hacer seguimiento de manera continua y sostenida. En otras palabras, el programa de acción no es un fin en sí mismo y tiene el potencial de ser una herramienta para lograr de manera efectiva una repartición más equitativa de la carga, ayudar a aliviar la presión sobre los países de acogida, fortalecer la autosuficiencia de los refugiados, expandir el acceso a soluciones de terceros países y favorecer en los países de origen un retorno en condiciones de seguridad y dignidad. El pacto implicará nuevas formas de trabajo y sobre todo una perspectiva más amplia centrada en resultados colectivos y en asociaciones estratégicas. A tal efecto, los principios rectores del pacto constituyen una herramienta vital. Adicionalmente, y como el resultado de la primera revisión trienal de la implementación del Plan de Acción de Brasil, los estados de América Latina y el Caribe identificaron 100 buenas prácticas emprendidas por uno o más países de la región, que fueron compiladas en un documento titulado Los 100 puntos de Brasilia, el cual fue presentado por la región como un aporte para la construcción del Pacto Global. En este sentido, quisiéramos destacar los esfuerzos de los 15 países que se encuentran implementando actualmente el CRRF y resalta particularmente los avances realizados en la implementación del MIRPS en Belice, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Honduras, México y Panamá, el cual constituye un ejemplo innovador de trabajo enfocado en soluciones y respuestas colectivas para atender a las personas con necesidad de protección. Los países que integran el MIRPS están preparando el primer informe de avances a un año de la creación. Este ejercicio servirá para identificar brechas y retos que permitan a dichos países delinear prioridades y estrategias nacionales y regionales para 2019. Esperamos que con base en estas lecciones aprendidas podamos seguir avanzando en la implementación del Pacto Global como un nuevo modelo de trabajo colectivo sin generar cargas adicionales para los países de acogida. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Colombia. The floor is now with the distinguished representative of Democratic Republic of the Congo. His Excellency, you have the floor.
Madame la Présidente, distingués membres du Bureau, Monsieur le Haut-Commissaire, Mesdames et Messieurs, c'est pour nous un grand honneur de prendre la parole au nom de Son Excellence Joseph Kabila Kabange, Président de la République démocratique du Congo, ainsi qu'au nom du gouvernement congolais, à l'occasion de la tenue de la 69e session du comité exécutif du programme du Haut-Commissaire des Nations Unies pour les réfugiés. De prime abord, permettez-moi de relever que nous adhérons à la déclaration générale faite au nom du groupe africain et félicitons la présidente des séances pour l'excellente conduite des débats. Madame la Présidente, Mesdames et Messieurs, pendant que nous nous réunissons ici, des faits dramatiques de migration de masse se déroulent un peu partout dans le monde, singulièrement en mer Méditerranée, où des centaines de personnes confinées dans des embarcations de fortune qui tentent de rejoindre désespérément les pays européens se trouvent ballottées en pleine mer et se heurtent aux législations restrictives et protectionnistes des différents pays de destination. Ces spectacles désolants de l'errance de ces hommes, femmes et enfants nous donnent la juste mesure de la générosité et de la solidarité légendaire des peuples africains dont les États disposent pourtant de ressources limitées. Des populations qui vivent elles-mêmes dans la précarité, en étant quelquefois dépourvues d'infrastructures de base, offrent sans hésitation leur hospitalité à tous ceux qui, dans les pays limitrophes, ont été contraints de tout abandonner pour échapper à la violence et à la guerre. C'est le cas de notre pays, la République démocratique du Congo, qui, dès les premières années de son indépendance, a été confronté aux défis que représentait la construction de sa nation et la nécessité d'accueillir des flux massifs de réfugiés provenant des pays voisins à la suite des guerres de libération, des crises politiques et des conflits civils internes. La République démocratique du Congo a, pour ce faire, mis en place un environnement propice à la protection des requérants d'asile et des réfugiés, en gravant dans le marbre constitutionnel la reconnaissance du droit d'asile et en instituant une loi portant statut de réfugié. Aujourd'hui, notre pays abrite 536 271 réfugiés, repartis respectivement en 217 000 Rwandais, 46 502 Burundais, 176 654 Centrafricains et 93 995 Soudanais du Sud. Environ 75% de ces réfugiés vivent dans les milieux ruraux avec des communautés hautes. Seuls 25% habitent dans des camps de réfugiés. Madame la Présidente, nous sommes satisfaits de constater que la situation des réfugiés dans notre pays constitue une réelle préoccupation de la part du Haut Commissariat pour les réfugiés, préoccupation confirmée par la visite dont Monsieur le Haut Commissaire nous a fait l'honneur et pour laquelle nous lui renouvelons nos sentiments de gratitude. Depuis lors, les évolutions observées sur le terrain indiquent clairement que la République démocratique du Congo a plus que jamais besoin d'un appui soutenu du Haut Commissariat des Nations Unies pour les réfugiés. En effet, en République centrafricaine, les affrontements récents dans la localité de Bangoussou ont fait fuir plus de 60 000 personnes en République démocratique du Congo durant l'année 2018. L'espoir d'une évolution positive de la situation au Soudan du Sud à la suite de la signature de l'accord de paix ne doit pas nous faire oublier que les villages et sites d'accueil des réfugiés situés dans les provinces frontalières du Haut-Ouélé et de l'Ituri en République démocratique du Congo sont présentement débordés et le resteront encore pendant une période non déterminée selon la situation du pays en question. Quant aux réfugiés burundais accueillis depuis 2015 et localisés dans la province du Sud Kivu, ils vivent dans les camps de Lusendo qui a depuis longtemps largement dépassé sa capacité d'accueil et ainsi que dans le second site de Moulongwe qui nécessite une viabilisation urgente. Madame la Présidente, Mesdames et Messieurs, les situations de troubles consécutives à l'accueil des réfugiés dans la partie est de notre pays en 1994 ont produit des conséquences désastreuses sur le territoire de la République, entraînant notamment des problèmes sécuritaires, des destructions des écosystèmes, des tensions intercommunautaires, des litiges fonciers, des violences sexuelles et des déplacements forcés à l'intérieur et à l'extérieur du territoire national. Aujourd'hui, dans la perspective de l'application de la clause de cessation du statut de réfugié, 200 000 ressortissants rwandais ont exprimé l'intention de demeurer dans notre pays. Il serait donc déraisonnable de les abandonner sur le territoire congolais sans statut définitif. S'inscrivant dans la vision du pacte mondial sur les réfugiés, la République démocratique du Congo sollicite en faveur de ces personnes l'implication décisive de la communauté internationale à travers le Haut Commissariat pour les réfugiés dans l'établissement des solutions durables, en particulier le rapatriement volontaire. En effet, un tel concours a permis depuis le dernier recensement en 2014 le retour dans leur pays de 37 398 réfugiés rwandais. Dès à présent, la priorité est d'assurer une existence légale documentée pour tous ces ressortissants rwandais qui souhaitent rester en République démocratique du Congo. C'est ainsi que pour déterminer le sort de ces personnes ayant perdu le statut de réfugié suite à la clause de cessation et ne voulant pas rentrer dans leur pays d'origine, et conformément aux recommandations de la 3e réunion de la commission tripartite République démocratique du Congo, Haut Commissariat pour les réfugiés et le Rwanda, tenue à Kigali en 2013, le gouvernement de la République démocratique du Congo propose la tenue de la 4e réunion de la commission précitée à Kinshasa durant la période comprise entre la fin du mois d'octobre et le début du mois de novembre prochain. Madame la Présidente, Mesdames et Messieurs, notre pays est préoccupé par le sort de nombreux compatriotes ayant trouvé asile dans les pays environnants. À cet effet, le gouvernement de la République démocratique du Congo s'engage dans un délai raisonnable à activer le mécanisme tripartite avec chacun des pays concernés afin de préparer dans les meilleures conditions le rapatriement dans leur milieu d'origine de ses compatriotes. Madame la Présidente, permettez-moi de profiter de cette prestigieuse tribune pour vous informer sur la situation du processus électoral en République démocratique du Congo, qui suit son cours normal conformément à la Constitution de la République démocratique du Congo, à l'accord politique du 31 décembre 2016 et au calendrier publié par la Commission électorale nationale indépendante prévoyant les élections au 23 décembre 2018. Toutes ces étapes cruciales du processus électoral sont à ce jour scrupuleusement respectées. Il ne reste plus que le déploiement imminent du matériel électoral et la campagne électorale, les listes définitives des candidats étant désormais publiées. Sous la houlette de son Excellence Monsieur le Président de la République, Joseph Kabila Kabange, le gouvernement a pris toutes les dispositions idoines sur le plan sécuritaire, financier et logistique pour la bonne tenue de ces élections, voulues inclusives, crédibles et apaisées, voire transparentes, et permettront le premier transfert pacifique de pouvoir dans mon pays depuis son indépendance et normaliseront durablement le jeu politique en République démocratique du Congo. Madame la Présidente, Mesdames et Messieurs, pour terminer, nous tenons à renouveler nos sentiments de remerciement et de reconnaissance au Haut Commissariat des Nations Unies pour les réfugiés, pour l'appui qu'il ne cesse d'apporter à notre pays dans la gestion des personnes ayant trouvé asile sur le territoire national. Nous vous remercions de votre aimable attention.
Thank you, His Excellency. The floor is now with the distinguished representative of Serbia. His Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. First of all, I would like to underline on behalf of the Republic of Serbia strong support to the untiring work of the UNHCR, whose contribution is of special significance today because it is taking place against the backdrop of multiple challenges globally. Conflicts, instability, poverty and a lack of perspective in some regions of the world have led to mass population movements whose consequences are difficult to predict. I believe that in such circumstances, it is important that the international community redoubles its efforts to promote human rights and demonstrate solidarity without prejudice and selectivity, with the aim of harmonizing different views and addressing the causes and the effect of the crisis. We strongly believe that this issue calls for a global solution in the spirit of solidarity and joint efforts, for it is not a geographically limited phenomenon, but one of global proportions. Serbia's approach in tackling this challenge was human and responsible, in line with international standards, relying primarily on its own human and financial resources and in cooperation with United Nations bodies and agencies, and other relevant international and non-governmental organizations. Ever since 2015, refugees and migrants from the Middle East have been staying in Serbia. Following the huge refugee influx, their numbers have now fallen to 3,400. They have arrived from Asia and Africa with an intention, after transiting EU member states, to continue their journey through Serbia on the way to the developed EU countries. Serbia has made a maximum effort to provide accommodation, food, shoes, clothes, healthcare and psychological and social support and assistance to all those who on the migration route stay longer on our territory. For these uprooted people and their children, we have also provided education and prepared them in a way to deal with the challenges they will face on their further migration route in the future. We are particularly proud of the human approach shown by the people of our country, reflecting our collective experience with displacement in the last 2 decades. I would like to remind you that the process of integration is still underway for more than 300,000 refugees and internally displaced persons from the territory of the former Yugoslavia, while 28,000 persons are still considered to be in protracted displacement, and over 200,000 from Kosovo and Metohija have a status of IDPs. Therefore, we are ready to share our experience on protracted displacement and to contribute to the global efforts aimed at resolving this issue. I would like to draw your attention to another serious project being carried out in the Republic of Serbia with the assistance of the UNHCR as well. Namely, I refer here to the regional housing program jointly implemented by 4 countries, Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina and Montenegro, in cooperation with the European Commission, UNHCR, OSCE and the Council of Europe Development Bank. We have put in a lot of effort, from drafting the programme itself, securing the funding, to developing the mechanism in order to be able to embark on practical implementation, which is in full swing. A major contribution to this was made by 2 decades of our experience in solving refugee problems and applying the good practices developed in cooperation with the European Union, UNHCR, OSCE and the Council of Europe Development Bank, to which I express my gratitude on this occasion, and to the donors who together contributed to the success of the regional housing programme. A simple solution to the refugee problem does not exist. Yet the regional housing programme is proof that a solution can be found if there is a will. That is a very important message because, as I have already mentioned, apart from the refugees from the former Yugoslavia, there are over 200,000 internally displaced persons from Kosovo and Metohija in the Republic of Serbia, for whom even 19 years on, conditions for the sustainable return have not been provided. We hope that the period ahead will see a positive development in relation to this issue and that internally displaced persons will be offered some solution by our side, respecting their rights that they must not be deprived of. That is why I expect all of us to do more in finding fair and durable solutions for this population. Successful implementation of the regional housing programme gives us all hope that solutions are reachable. In conclusion, I would like to thank the High Commissioner for Refugees, Mr. Grandi, and the UNHCR for their commitment and unflagging work to resolve the current global migrant refugee crisis, but also for their commitment and perseverance in settling the issue of protracted displacement that is very important for all of us. UNHCR and other international partners can count on Serbia as a reliable partner in meeting this goal in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, His Excellency. The floor is now with the distinguished delegates of Algeria. His Excellency, you have the floor.
شكرا سيدتي الرئيسة، السيد المفوض السامي، أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، السيدات والسادة، أود أن أهنئكم وجميع أعضاء المكتب على العمل الذي أنجز خلال العام الماضي. سيدتي الرئيسة، إن اجتماعنا اليوم ذو أهمية قصوى لأنه يتيح لنا الفرصة لمشاركة انشغالاتنا وأملنا في قضية اللاجئين وإدارات احتياجاتهم من حيث المساعدات والحماية. لدينا انشغالات أولا وقبل كل شيء فيما يتعلق بالعديد الهائل الذي سجلناه على الصعيد العالمي للأشخاص الذين أجبروا على الفرار من بلدانهم. سنة بعد سنة ما زالت الصراعات والحروب إلى جانب الفقر والمجاعة والظروف الجوية القاسية تجبر عشرات الملايين من الناس على البقاء في المنفى. هذا الوضع بطبيعة الحال يثير سلسلة من المخاوف ذات الصلة. أولا، حقيقة أن اللاجئين لا يزالون يستقرون في البلدان النامية، وغالبا من يكونون على حدودها ويعانون من صعوبات اجتماعية واقتصادية خاصة بهم. ثانيا، ملاحظتنا أن الحلول المستدامة بعيدة المنال مما أدى إلى تزايد عدد الأشخاص الذين يقعون داخل اختصاص المفوضية. ثالثا، التوجه السائد لتطبيق معايير حماية عالية في بلدان اللجوء الأولى. هذا هو الاتجاه الذي لا يأخذ بعين الاعتبار الواقع الاجتماعي والاقتصادي لهذه الدول، بالإضافة إلى أن جميع الأموال من أجل العمل الإنساني أصبح عملية شاقة، ليس فقط بالنسبة للمفوضية ولكن بالنسبة للمنظومة الأممية المتحدة بأكملها. السيدة الرئيسة، يجب أن يجسد اجتماعنا اليوم التزامنا بمعالجة مسألة التهجير القسري مع مراعاة الشواغل الحقيقية والمشروعية التي أعربت عنها البلدان المضيفة. هذا النهج ينطوي على أولا التزام مجدد بمنع النزاعات وحلها وفقا لقواعد ومبادئ القانون الدولي وميثاق الأمم المتحدة. ثانيا، مشاركة متكافئة لهذا الإعلام على المستوى الدولي من حيث قبول اللاجئين ومن حيث الحماية أو إيجاد الحلول مستدامة لصالحها. نجاح هذا النهج يرتبط إلى حد كبير بقدرتنا على التصرف فرديا أو جماعيا على الأسباب الجذرية للتهجير القسري من أجل وضع حد للزيادة المستمرة في عدد اللاجئين حول العالم. تحت قيادتكم سيدتي وأعضاء المكتب الآخرين، اتخذنا قبل 3 أشهر خطوات هامة في عملية وضع الصيغة النهائية للميثاق العالمي بشأن اللاجئين، وبالإضافة إلى كونه حجر زاوية أخرى في تطويد تعددية الأطراف، فإن الميثاق يمثل طموحنا للمضي قدما في معالجة قضية التهجير القسري المعقدة، ولكن من أجل أن تكون النتائج في مستوى طموحي فمن الضروري أن يتمتع تنفيذ الميثاق بدعم الجميع على أساس تضامن دولي، ومن الضروري في نفس القدر دعم هذا التنفيذ من خلال إنشاء آلية ملموسة لتقاسم الأعباء والمسؤوليات. وستكون الخطوة الأولى في هذا الاتجاه هي الانتهاء من عملية قياس تأثير وجود لاجئين على المجتمعات والبلدان المضيفة، وينبغي التركيز بشكل خاص على حالة البلدان التي بها أعداد كبيرة من اللاجئين لفترة طويلة. السيدة الرئيسة، بعدما يقارب 70 عاما على توقيع اتفاق جنيف بشأن اللاجئين، لا تزال الأزمات والنزاعات تدفع بسبب أثرها الكارثي الملايين من الناس لطلب الحماية والأمل في مستقبل أفضل. إلا الإحصائيات المتاحة اليوم تعطي صورة غير مشجعة، فركود الصراعات في أفريقيا والشرق الأوسط وآسيا يشكل تحديا كبيرا إذ أن ضحايا هذه الأزمات تنتظر منا إجراءات قوية مع التزامات صادقة لإيجاد حلول مستدامة. سيدتي الرئيسة، الجزائر بصفتها أرض لجوء تقليدي لا تزال ملتزمة بسياستها تجاه اللاجئين والمهاجرين الموجودين على أراضيها، وهذا نابعا من قناعة عميقة تأسست على مر السنين. لأكثر من 4 عقود كانت الجزائر لا تزال موطنا لعشرات الآلاف من اللاجئين الصحراويين، وهي مسؤولية عن معظم المساعدات والحمايات التي يحق لهم الحصول عليها كلاجئين معترف بهم من قبل الأمم المتحدة. كما تستضيف الجزائر اللاجئين والمهاجرين من بلدان أخرى تعاني من الصراع وعدم الاستقرار. في الواقع اختار 40,000 سوري مواطن سوري البقاء في الجزائر في أعقاب الأزمة التي تهز هذا البلد الشقيق. وضعت الجزائر نظاما لصالحهم ولا يزال ساري المفعول يوفر لهم تسهيلات في الوصول إلى التعليم والخدمات الصحية وسوق العمل والإسكان عندما تسمح الضرورة بذلك. ولذا تدعم الجزائر الجهود الرامية إلى حل الصراعات في الصحراء الغربية والأزمة السورية من أجل السماح للاجئين بالعودة إلى أراضيهم وأراضي أجدادهم بمجرد استيفاء شروط الاستقرار والأمن. السيدة الرئيسة، نلاحظ نشوب أزمات جديدة دون حل الأزمات القائمة، ولذا دعونا نتعهد ببذل المزيد لحماية الأشخاص المضطهدين واللاجئين أو المهاجرين. تعبئتنا اليوم ليست خيارا وإنما حالة مستعجلة، وإلا فنحن أمام إخلال بواجب المساعدة. أشكركم على حسن الإصغاء والسلام عليكم.
Thank you very much, His Excellency. The floor is now with the distinguished representative of Somalia. His Excellency, you have the floor.
Madam Chairman, Madam Chair, High Commissioner, distinguished delegates, our delegation welcomed the statement of the High Commissioner on the opening of this session, and on behalf of the government of Somalia, we would like to convey our appreciation for his commitment and support to the Somali refugees in the region of the Horn of Africa and Yemen, as well as the internally displaced persons. We also support and agree with the statement made by the Ugandan minister on behalf of the African group. The federal government of Somalia would like to express gratitude to all countries in the region, Kenya, Ethiopia, Djibouti, Uganda, and Yemen, that have been providing asylum to Somali refugees since the outbreak of the civil war in 1991. We equally thank donor countries and NGOs for their assistance, particularly UNHCR Somalia, whose contribution in this regard is highly appreciated. I would like to outline the enormous problems facing Somalia. There are around 2.6 million internally displaced persons in Somalia. According to the UNHCR, over 19,000 Somalis are living outside their country as asylum seekers and refugees. The number of refugees in neighboring countries is currently around 767,500 according to the same source of the UNHCR. From the end of 2014, 120,050 people returned to the country voluntarily, with most of them receiving assistance to return in collaboration with international organizations. Most of these returnees came from Kenya, while as many as 2,000 have been rescued from Yemen this year alone, whereas more than 200 have been released from jails and in the hands of Libyan smugglers and traffickers. Madam Chair, since the EXCOM meeting a year ago, a number of challenges have continued to bedevil the country, including the following. This year's floods and previous drought, which resulted in the displacement of hundreds of thousands of displaced people, was tackled by the commendable intervention of the government, the Somali people, and the international community, who together have managed to lessen the impact of the floods. As of 31st July, 31,473 refugees and asylum seekers from Yemen were registered in Somalia. With the support of UNHCR, the federal government of Somalia is working to register asylum seekers and refugees and to provide for those with specific needs. Madam Chair, my government is concerned, ready and willing to provide the leadership necessary to achieving solutions for the displaced, which is what has motivated us to canvass the views of Somalis together with friends and partners to find the most appropriate way forward in finding durable solutions. It is in this context that I would refer to Somalia's National Action Plan, which is one of the most important outcomes of the commitments in support of greater international responsibility, sharing and building on the existing framework in Somalia through a jointed-up approach, i.e. the Comprehensive Refugee Response Framework of the New York Declaration, the IGAD Special Summit, commonly known as the Nairobi Declaration, the National Forum on Durable Solutions for Retainees, and the IDBs. The action plan is a 3-year strategy with linkages and alignment with existing processes, including adherence to the 2017-2019 National Development Plan and existing aid architecture. One of the important requirements the government considers as necessary is to review the legal frameworks that would facilitate the achievement of durable solutions for refugees in Somalia. The most important and urgent ones include the need to finalize refugee retainees and IDB policy, refugee and asylum law or protocols, housing, land and property law, and the elimination of statelessness. As Somalia is working on reclaiming occupied premises of state institutions, Somalia is keen on addressing the issue of evictions. Therefore, at the second Somalia Partnership Forum on July 2018 in Brussels, the federal government of Somalia committed to ensure that national eviction guidelines are adopted to deal with this matter fairly and avoid violating the rights of those affected. In this regard, it's important to recall that it is a great achievement for Somalia that it has accepted the adoption and ratification of the Kampala Convention that guides African displacements, as Somalia was already one of the original signatories. Madam Chair, I am pleased to note that there is continuous recognition that Somalia's stabilization progress stabilization progress is taking root, and we are committed to taking a holistic approach to the issue of finding durable solutions for the displaced, and in our view, we consider area-based approach as the best method suited to resolve this problem in an inclusive manner, taking into consideration IDPs, refugees, detainees, and the host population. This approach has many advantages, the most important being to encourage social cohesion and avoid resource-based conflicts. It's also important to note that it recognizes areas of return, i.e. districts and municipalities, have a crucial role to play in this regard and need strengthening in terms of capacities and resources to meet this burden. I would like to mention that for the government to take up holistically the issue of the displaced and work towards achieving durable solutions, it will result in increased burden on the government and will require significant investment, capacity building of government institutions directly involved both at the federal and, more importantly, at the regional levels, and real commitment to cooperation amongst humanitarian and development agencies, and above all, support of the donor community. The primary impetus is the perpetual lack of adequate resources from the international community to meet the needs of refugees. This equally applies to Somalia's reception and reintegration effort, which could potentially have the effect of derailing the successful achievements made so far. Here we request that UNHCR be allowed the flexibility to implement quick impact projects to meet the immediate needs of detainees to avert any disruption which may have deleterious impact on voluntary repatriation. Madam Chair, the needs and challenges on the ground still remain enormous, but there is a window of opportunity for all stakeholders to work together to increase the absorption capacity of the receiving communities and expand access to basic services and livelihood opportunities, which are key flagship sectors to support sustainable reintegration and local integration for IDPs. Working together, however, means mandate flexibility, but not mandate shedding. We therefore sincerely request UNHCR to maintain its responsibility for repatriation and reintegration. In conclusion, Somalia welcomes and supports the Global Compact as proposed by the High Commissioner. I wish to thank all the participants and wish all of you very successful deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, His Excellency. The floor is now with the distinguished delegates of Equatorial Guinea. You have the floor, please.
Señor Alto Comisionado de las Naciones Unidas para los Refugiados, señoras y señores delegados, permítanme, en nombre de la delegación que me acompaña a esta 69ª sesión del Comité Ejecutivo del Programa del Alto Comisionado, sumarnos a las felicitaciones de los oradores precedentes. Aprovecho la ocasión para expresarles en nombre del presidente de la República de Guinea Ecuatorial, jefe de Estado y de Gobierno, Su Excelencia Obiang Nguema Mbasogo, nuestros fervientes saludos de paz, armonía y solidaridad. Mi delegación felicita a la señora presidenta, deseándola muchos éxitos en su cometido. Agradecemos y felicitamos a la Oficina del Alto Comisionado de las Naciones Unidas para los Refugiados por su actuación sobre la situación de los refugiados y de sus programas de protección y asistencia en las diferentes regiones del mundo. Señora Presidenta, señor Alto Comisionado, extendemos este agradecimiento a todos los trabajadores humanitarios que arriesgan sus vidas día a día sobre el terreno en las múltiples y distintas misiones, ofreciendo una versión mejorada del ser humano. Valoramos enormemente vuestros esfuerzos y nos comprometemos con los principios del derecho internacional humanitario que garantizan el acceso pleno y libre del ser humano como condición indispensable para cumplir con el mandato de protección de los refugiados y aliados. Asimismo, agradecemos el excelente trabajo que ha venido realizando durante sus meses de gestión en la dirección del ACNUR. Auguramos el mayor de los éxitos. También queremos agradecerle el detallado informe que nos ha presentado en el día de hoy, que da cuenta de la situación de los refugiados y desplazados en el mundo y la labor desarrollada por ACNUR. El refugio es un tema que hoy requiere la necesidad de la cooperación internacional y que implica la responsabilidad compartida entre todos los miembros de la comunidad internacional para hacer frente con una perspectiva de derechos y dignidad humana. Guinea Ecuatorial se adhiere a la intervención realizada por el Grupo Africano y renueva su compromiso con la acción humanitaria y muy especialmente en los lineamientos del ACNUR. Señora Presidenta, las crisis humanitarias a las que nos enfrentamos siguen creciendo en número, escala y persistencia, afectando a millones de personas en el mundo. Es por lo que la labor de los trabajadores humanitarios es vital que nunca. El diálogo sobre los desafíos a la protección no está concebido para conseguir resultados formales o consensuados, sino más bien pretende construir un espacio de discusión para un abierto intercambio de opiniones entre Estados, las organizaciones gubernamentales y no gubernamentales y otras contrapartes. Se debe poner de relieve que la protección de los refugiados es primordialmente responsabilidad de todos los Estados. En este contexto, que la importancia de una solidaridad internacional es necesaria. Nuestro país es parte de los instrumentos regionales e internacionales sobre los derechos humanos. Es por lo que desde hace varios años Guinea Ecuatorial ha emprendido un arduo camino hacia la transformación del Estado y el reconocimiento esencial de todos los derechos y libertades de los ciudadanos como parte fundamental. Nuestro país ha desarrollado políticas e iniciativas de protección e integración para los emigrantes de acuerdo con nuestra tradición histórica hospitalidad. Damos la bienvenida a la preparación de un pacto global para una emigración regular, segura y ordenada. Para una mejor realización y para cubrir necesidades básicas, restablecer derechos y garantizar la protección de los refugiados, hay que prestar especial atención a la seguridad alimentaria y nutricional, al acceso a la vivienda, al agua, saneamiento e higiene y a la salud de los refugiados. En cuanto a la protección, merecen atención especial los menores de edad, adultos tercera edad, personas con discapacidad, mujeres y personas víctimas de la trata y otros colectivos en situación de vulnerabilidad. Guinea Ecuatorial asume que los menores migrantes no acompañados son un grupo vulnerable que merece atenciones especiales a través de políticas y programas nacionales que permitan la reunificación familiar, la asistencia y protección legal oportuna, manteniendo una visión social humanitaria y reconociendo asimismo las particularidades de cada país. Guinea Ecuatorial reafirma la plena vigencia de los principios rectores de la asistencia humanitaria internacional contenidos en la resolución 46/182 de la Asamblea General de las Naciones Unidas, los cuales siguen siendo más vigentes que nunca ante las actuales emergencias humanitarias y los grandes desplazamientos. Nuestro país entiende que la cooperación internacional es aún más urgente debido al gran número de personas que requieren de protección y ante la evidencia de que las soluciones tradicionales de reasentamiento, retorno voluntario o integración son útiles pero no suficientes y que para alcanzar una correcta materialización de las responsabilidades de los Estados es necesario reforzar sus capacidades en materia de protección, asistencia y soluciones duraderas, además de destinar recursos internacionales suficientes para apoyar a los países que reciben importantes flujos de refugiados, así como los países de origen. Felicitamos la adopción de la Declaración de Nueva York sobre refugiados y emigrantes por la Asamblea General de la ONU en el marco de la reunión plenaria de alto nivel sobre los grandes movimientos de refugiados y migrantes celebrada en el marco del 71 periodo de sesiones de la Asamblea General el pasado 19 de septiembre de 2016. Renovamos nuestro compromiso con los nobles propósitos que dieron nacimiento a esta organización y reiteramos nuestra mejor y plena disposición de seguir trabajando con el ACNUR en el cumplimiento de su mandato. Señora Presidenta, queremos concluir esta intervención informando a la comunidad internacional que la República de Guinea Ecuatorial accedió a la independencia nacional el día 12 de octubre de 1968, Día de la Hispanidad. Es por lo que celebramos este año el 50 aniversario de la soberanía nacional, donde hemos invitado a todos los países amantes de la paz y del respeto de la soberanía de los Estados. Auguramos un gran éxito a los trabajos de esta sesión del Comité Ejecutivo del Programa del Alto Comisionado de las Naciones Unidas para los Refugiados y esperamos que adopte el programa que garantice la participación de todos los Estados miembros de las Naciones Unidas a fin de presentar una propuesta consensuada con pleno respeto a los mandatos respectivos de las agencias y organizaciones internacionales relevantes en la materia. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, His Excellency. I would like to remind all of you that the time slot for speakers is only up to 5 minutes. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Switzerland, who will address the committee on their capacity as host country. Switzerland, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Madame la Présidente, Monsieur le Haut-Commissaire, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, ma délégation souhaite aborder 3 points principaux: les besoins en protection, le déplacement interne et le pacte mondial sur les réfugiés. Nous ferons en outre référence à la distinction Nansen. La Suisse se réjouit de la réaffirmation répétée par le UNHCR du caractère central de la protection. La sécurité et la possibilité de vivre dans la dignité sont des objectifs prioritaires de toute action humanitaire. Cela est vrai pour toutes les personnes affectées par les conséquences des conflits et des désastres. Le leadership du UNHCR pour la protection dans le système humanitaire des Nations Unies reste dans ce contexte absolument clé. À cet égard, la Suisse rappelle que l'intégrité technique des programmes du UNHCR est essentielle à son mandat de protection. Les activités du UNHCR et de ses partenaires doivent avoir un haut niveau de qualité, par exemple dans les domaines de l'eau, de l'assainissement et des abris. Dans ce contexte, la Suisse souhaiterait savoir comment le UNHCR va assurer dans le futur le maintien de sections techniques viables à son siège pour assurer une unité de doctrine et le nécessaire contrôle de qualité. La situation de protection en Libye reste dramatique. Selon des estimations du UNHCR, 8000 migrants sont retenus dans des camps et des centres de détention officieux. En 2018, la Suisse a réinstallé 82 personnes que le UNHCR avait évacuées via le Niger. Nous exprimons, avec le commissaire, notre reconnaissance au Niger pour son accueil et encourageons les autres pays à continuer leur soutien à la réinstallation de personnes en provenance de Libye. Madame la Présidente, le nombre de personnes déplacées à l'intérieur de leur pays atteint presque 42 millions. Malgré cette réalité, le phénomène de déplacement interne est malheureusement négligé dans les discussions et fait peu l'objet des considérations de cette Assemblée. Diverses initiatives sont en cours pour redonner à cette problématique plus de visibilité et nous espérons qu'elles permettront de remédier à ce manque. La Suisse soutient par ailleurs le UNHCR dans la mise en œuvre des conclusions de la revue opérationnelle mandatée en 2017 par le Haut-Commissaire. Les résultats semblent prometteurs. La Suisse attend une information sur les mesures prises dans le cadre du comité permanent en 2019. Madame la Présidente, le pacte mondial sur les réfugiés, visant à un meilleur partage du fardeau et de la responsabilité, a été salué par les États présents lors de la dernière consultation formelle. La Suisse se réjouit de la réaffirmation d'éléments clés pour le régime de protection des réfugiés, notamment le droit de demander l'asile, le principe de non-refoulement et le respect des principes humanitaires. Il salue les références à d'autres phénomènes de déplacement forcé, y compris celui dû à des désastres. Ce n'est qu'en commun que nous arriverons à répondre aux défis mondiaux avec une approche collective à l'égard du pacte. La Suisse invite tous les États à endosser ce texte par le biais de la résolution Omnibus et à s'engager pour sa mise en œuvre. Madame la Présidente, depuis 1954, la distinction Nansen célèbre l'action de personnes qui s'engagent en faveur des réfugiés, des déplacés internes et des apatrides. Ce prix est soutenu par le UNHCR, la Norvège, la Suisse et la Fondation IKEA. Je félicite ici le Dr Yves Nathan Adaha, le lauréat 2018. Son action exemplaire illustre l'importance capitale des soins de santé pour répondre aux besoins induits par les déplacements. La Suisse exprime sa gratitude au UNHCR et à son personnel pour l'organisation de la cérémonie de remise de la distinction qui aura lieu ce soir. Nous nous réjouissons de vous y accueillir pour honorer le Dr Attard et les autres nominés. Pour conclure, Madame la Présidente, la Suisse réitère son plein soutien au UNHCR dans l'exécution de son mandat. Elle continuera à soutenir le UNHCR, en particulier dans les 3 domaines prioritaires que j'ai cités. La protection, la question des personnes déplacées internes et la mise en œuvre du pacte mondial sur les réfugiés. La Suisse remercie le personnel du UNHCR et de ses organisations partenaires pour leur engagement sans faille au service des personnes déplacées et apatrides dans le monde. Nous sommes conscients que les conditions de travail sont parfois extrêmement difficiles et que le personnel du UNHCR est trop souvent victime de violences sur le terrain. Ma délégation saisit cette occasion pour lui rendre un hommage appuyé. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Switzerland. The floor is now with the distinguished delegates of the United States.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll focus my remarks on 3 issues that drive our current engagement in the international humanitarian response to refugees. First, our national security strategy states that the United States will continue to lead the world in humanitarian assistance and that we will provide this generous assistance as close to refugees' homes as possible in order to meet their needs until they can return home safely, voluntarily, and with dignity. To this commitment, the United States remains the largest single donor of humanitarian assistance worldwide. As of last week, in fiscal year 2018, we have provided nearly $1.2 billion in humanitarian assistance for the Syria crisis, nearly $545 million for the South Sudan regional humanitarian response, and nearly $420 million in humanitarian assistance in the Lake Chad Basin region. The United States has also provided more than $95 million since 2017 in life-saving assistance to Venezuelans who have fled their homes, and nearly $389 million for those impacted by violence in Rakhine State. To UNHCR alone, we provided more than $1.5 billion in fiscal year 2018. Second, our national security strategy also states that no nation can unilaterally alleviate all human suffering. As Secretary of State Pompeo recently stated, the best way to help most people is to promote burden sharing with partners and allies, end quote. To this end, we are grateful of the efforts of other countries to take on additional responsibilities for those in need of protection. Examples are evident on almost every continent. In the Western Hemisphere, the government of Costa Rica recently developed a 2-year framework for protection and solutions for the refugees they host that includes access to government-run social welfare programs, entrepreneurship opportunities, and support. We applaud the many countries throughout Latin America who have generously opened their doors to the unprecedented outflow of more than 2 million Venezuelans. In Africa, Ethiopia is finalizing a legally binding proclamation to expand refugees access to work, education, and other basic services, and recently allowed refugees to receive vital documents including birth, marriage, death, and divorce certificates. In the Middle East, the government of Jordan has committed to allowing all children access to public education, and since 2016 has issued more than 87,000 formal work permits to Syrian refugees. In Turkey, nearly 4 million refugees have access to free health care, legal work, and education, with more than 600,000 Syrian refugee children enrolled in school. In Asia, Thailand has granted nationality to more than 30,000 stateless persons, which has allowed these individuals access to formal education and work. We commend the government of Pakistan for beginning a national discussion on offering citizenship to refugees born there. To these governments and others who are applying the comprehensive refugee response framework, we commend your efforts to improve the lives of refugees and the communities that are hosting them. Third, to maximize the impact of our collective humanitarian efforts, we support the humanitarian reform commitments made by donors and humanitarian agencies alike under the Grand Bargain to increase efficiency, transparency, accountability, and effectiveness of humanitarian assistance. However, we seek more tangible, measurable progress and prioritization from our partners, and we remain committed to doing the same in our own ranks. We recognize UNHCR's progress in building local partner capacity and creating efficiencies in partnership management alongside UN sister agencies. Moreover, we recognize UNHCR's solid reporting on its work to improve accountability to affected populations. However, efforts to improve the transparency of reporting and measurement of progress on the Grand Bargain, especially those regarding joint needs assessments that underpin prioritized response plans and appeals and reduce duplication and management costs, are urgently needed. UNHCR country representatives should be held accountable for openly sharing data and information and actively engaging in joint intersectoral needs analyses. In closing, we thank the staff of UNHCR for their contributions to the cause we all serve, the protection of refugees and the displaced, and the promotion of the solutions that will allow them to lead their lives in freedom and with dignity. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The floor is now with the distinguished delegates of Azerbaijan. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will speak in Russian. Уверен, что обсуждения на заседании сессии, как и всегда, будут полезны для всех участников и в определенной степени внесут свою значимую лепту в совершенствование и улучшение положения беженцев и вынужденных переселенцев в мире. Вопрос беженцев и вынужденных переселенцев является одним из самых актуальных тем для мировой общественности. Локальные конфликты, стихийные бедствия, охватившие за последние годы различные страны Азии, Африки и Европы, стали причиной массовых миграционных процессов. Масштабность проблемы миграции стали основной причиной принятия в конце 2016 года Нью-Йоркской декларации о беженцах и мигрантах. Этот глобальный международный акт по вопросам беженцев и вынужденных переселенцев несомненно послужит эффективным средством защиты лиц, находящихся в сложной жизненной обстановке. Азербайджан, будучи членом ООН и исполкома управления Верховного комиссара, глубоко осознавая свою международную ответственность, конструктивно участвовал в обсуждении проекта этого документа. Однако, к сожалению, не смог добиться, чтобы вопросу внутренней миграции в Нью-Йоркской декларации было уделено достаточно внимания. Считаем необходимым и сейчас усовершенствование международного законодательства по защите лиц, вынужденно покинувшего свои постоянные места проживания. Азербайджан более 25 лет занят решением проблемы вынужденных переселенцев, возникшей в результате армяно-азербайджанского Нагорно-Карабахского конфликта. Армения, не выполняя требования 4 резолюций безопасности ООН, от 1993 года о безоговорочном и незамедлительном выводе армянских войск с оккупированных территорий продолжает оккупацию 20% территории Азербайджана, что практически препятствует возвращению вынужденных переселенцев на свои исконные родные земли. Решение социальных проблем вынужденных переселенцев большим бременем легло на государственный бюджет страны. Учитывая отсутствие условий проживания для вынужденных переселенцев, посредством бюджетных средств страны было возведено 98 современных жилищных комплексов. Практически 270 тысяч беженцев и вынужденных переселенцев были обеспечены жильем. В целом на решение социальных проблем беженцев и вынужденных переселенцев, более миллиона, которых проживает сегодня в нашей стране, было расходовано более 7 миллиардов долларов из бюджетных средств. Однако до сегодняшнего дня более 400 тысяч вынужденных переселенцев пока еще все живут в тяжелых условиях. В этих вопросах Азербайджан также рассчитывает на международную поддержку. Надеемся, что международные организации и фонды уделят должное внимание решению политических и социальных проблем вынужденных переселенцев в Азербайджане. Месяц назад на пресс-конференции в Бейруте господин Филиппо Гранди сказал, что возвращение – лучшее решение для беженцев, но оно должно быть добровольным и устойчивым. Азербайджан однозначно поддерживает эту идею и в соответствии с законодательством страны правовой статус вынужденных переселенцев и беженцев оставляет до их полного возвращения к своим родным очагам. А это значит, что сегодня из государственного бюджета на поддержку каждого беженца и вынужденного переселенца выделяются определенные социальные средства. Сотрудничество между правительством Азербайджана и Управлением Верховного комиссара ООН по делам беженцев и остается крепким и продуктивным. Азербайджан предпринимает все условия для выполнения взятых на себя международных обязательств по проблемам беженцев и мигрантов. Благодарю за внимание.
Thank you, His Excellency. The floor is now with the distinguished delegates of Malawi.
Your Excellency, Chairperson, distinguished delegates, allow me to deliver the 2018 Malawi country statement on behalf of the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs and Internal Security, who will join the EXCOM meeting later in the week. Chairperson, first and foremost, I bring my best wishes and warm greetings from Malawi, the home heart of Africa, to this conference. I would like to thank the government and the people of Switzerland for the warm hospitality awarded to all delegates to the conference since our arrival in this beautiful city of Geneva. Let me join the earlier speakers in congratulating you, Chairperson, on your appointment to lead the deliberations of the 69th session of the EXCOM 2018. I also wish to convey the Malawi government's appreciation to the High Commissioner for the wonderful work and support provided in the management of refugee operations in Malawi in the past year. Malawi is inspired by the High Commissioner's opening statement, which underscores UNHCR's continued commitment to assist governments in curbing and containing the refugee situation, IDPs and stateless individuals globally. Allow me also to thank the UNHCR staff for the excellent humanitarian operations worldwide. And it is the hope of the Malawi government that the good work will continue in the years to come. We fully associate ourselves with the statement from the AU in this regard. Chairperson, allow me to assure you that by acceding to the 1951 UN Convention and the 1969 OAU Convention, the government of Malawi made a strong commitment in the management of refugees. We have maintained open borders and have been hosting refugees for over 4 decades now. Refugees are allowed to stay until conditions are safe in their respective countries. This was also the case with the Mozambican caseload who were in Malawi between 1985 and 1996. Currently, Malawi is also hosting over 2,700 Mozambican asylum seekers at the Luwani refugee camp in Neno district in the southern part of the country. Plans are underway between the two governments and the UNHCR to facilitate the voluntary repatriation of the caseload. The tripartite agreement to facilitate the voluntary repatriation of the caseload is still pending, and consideration is being made for the process to be carried out through exchange of letters between Malawi and the UNHCR. As an update to this matter, the caseload of about 2,590 voluntarily left the country by 29 September 2018, while others are believed to have left spontaneously. Further to this, there are over 42,000 individuals from the Great Lakes region of Rwanda, Burundi, and DRC, among others, hosted at the Zarega refugee camp in the Central Region district of Dowa. Another 1,500 newly arrived and are yet to be registered, and we have up to 500 to 600 new arrivals every month. All refugees are accorded equal rights and protection under the Malawi Constitution and are not restricted from engaging in self-employment within and around the designated areas. Under the CRRF, which Malawi is to adopt, it is government's desire to enable refugees to become self-reliant and not to rely on food handouts. At this point, let me also register Malawi's appreciation for the support received from cooperating and implementing partners. Chairperson, Malawi has continued to implement the comprehensive refugee strategy for Rwanda, and efforts are made to encourage them to go back. In conclusion, Chairperson, distinguished delegates, let me assure the meeting that Malawi remains committed to the management of refugees together with UNHCR and other partners in the best interest of the people we care for. I thank you, Chairperson, and all distinguished delegates. Thank you.
Thank you, Malawi. Distinguished colleagues, Excellencies, I now give the floor to High Commissioner to respond to the comments and statements that were made. High Commissioner, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few remarks. First of all, to thank all speakers, in particular ministers and senior officials that have traveled all the way from capitals to attend the ExCom. Thank you very much both for your presence and for your contributions. Second, thank you very much to all of you, many of you, who already in this first group of speakers have provided further support to the Global Compact on refugees. I note in particular in this last statement of Malawi the emphasis that others as well have put on the inclusion of refugees. I spoke about this in my own statement. This is one centerpiece of the compact. inclusion meaning inclusion as much as possible, as much as feasible, during the time when refugees are hosted in a particular country, away from models that foster dependency and discourage self-reliance and solutions. So I really welcome those of you who have spoken about that. I want to, in this context of the Global Compact, let me also flag the important statement of Somalia, highlighting the regional approach that we have embarked upon in the Horn of Africa for Somali refugees, with a view once again to enhance protection but also look at solutions for refugees. And finally, and in thanking the Foreign Minister of Algeria for his excellent statement, I would like to emphasize the fact that his notion, je me réfère à la déclaration de l'Algérie pour souligner l'importance donnée par le ministre à la question de l'impact de la présence des réfugiés dans les zones qui les hébergent, dans les pays et dans les régions qui les hébergent. C'est un élément important que nous devons développer dans l'analyse et dans les réponses. Et c'est pour cela que notre collaboration avec les institutions financières, notamment la Banque mondiale et autres, est si importante pour nous donner une capacité d'analyse ultérieure dans ce travail très important que nous devons faire ensemble. Merci de cette importante déclaration. I'd like to refer to the Uganda statement on behalf of the Africa Group. However, I understand Uganda will speak again in its national capacity, to thank the Africa Group for this important statement, to thank the Africa Group for its very strong support to the work done on the Global Compact, and to say that we share very much your preoccupation about resources. And the issue of resources in refugee responses in Africa is particularly serious and important. In our planning for next year, we have slightly increased the initial allocation, budgetary allocation, since this was mentioned, for Africa, but many of the resources coming to Africa are linked to special appeals and are earmarked for specific situations, and this is why sometimes they come late into the year, as was the case in 2018. So here I want to join the Africa Group in appealing to donors for early allocation of resources for crisis in Africa. I'd like to also highlight, however, that in addition to humanitarian resources which should be preserved, we're working with the World Bank and others, and we will hear more this afternoon from the World Bank itself, on different type of resources for education, for employment, for local community, for infrastructure, for environment, all that has to do with the impact of refugee presence. And I'd like to also stress, like I did in my opening statement, that the two humanitarian development resources are additional, are not at the expense of humanitarian resources, which was a concern expressed by the Africa Group. The contributions, for example, to refer to another speaker, that we receive from the European Commission, from the European Union, clearly indicates that we have humanitarian resources provided by ECHO and increasingly bilateral development resources provided by their Development Cooperation Office, by DEFCO. So this is an indication of this additionality, which is quite important. In terms of resources, I would like to thank the United States for having confirmed in its statement its very substantial contribution for 2018 in excess of $1.5 billion US. This is something that I would like to very, very strongly recognize and express our appreciation for, because it will be very determining in responding to many of the crises that have been mentioned. The European statement, for which I thank the European Union, included a reference to Syrian return. I spoke about it in my opening statement, just to make it very clear. First, that for us return is not return, and all that goes with return has no linkage whatsoever with the political situation, is a humanitarian endeavor. And in that respect, we will continue to recognize the right of Syrian and any other refugees to return to their countries, and will support with humanitarian and reintegration assistance those that return, and we will continue to work with those that have the authority to do that, governments in countries of origin, governments supporting them, to try to address the obstacles to return that refugees speak to us about. I explained that in my opening statement, but I would like to stress it again. Thank you very much for the statement of Colombia, the important statement of Colombia. Just to stress that I'm happy that Colombia emphasized the regional tradition in providing asylum and other forms of legal protection for people that flee in distress. The large outflow of Venezuelans represent a new challenge. On the other hand, that tradition needs to be upheld, and Venezuela itself is an example of upholding that tradition, having been itself a country receiving refugees in the region for many years. So I hope that that tradition, as we spoke about in Brazil, the Brazil Declaration was mentioned, and the 100 points of Brasilia were mentioned, I think it will continue to be upheld. I am planning to visit myself the region next week, just after the ExCom, and I look forward to cooperating with our new Joint Special Representative, IOM UNHCR Joint Special Representative Eduardo Stein, who is here or will be here this week and available to meet delegations as needed. Un remerciement particulier à Monsieur le Ministre, à la délégation congolaise de la République démocratique du Congo. La République démocratique du Congo a expliqué une situation de déplacement complexe que j'ai vue moi-même lors de ma visite il n'y a pas longtemps, une situation où le pays héberge un très grand nombre de réfugiés des pays voisins, où nous vivons une situation de déplacement interne, et un pays qui produit aussi des réfugiés qui vont dans les pays voisins. Je salue donc le fait que la délégation congolaise ait souligné l'importance de trouver des solutions régionales à travers des discussions tripartites en particulier à ces phénomènes de déplacement, et nous sommes bien sûr prêts à continuer notre collaboration à cet égard. This situation of countries hosting refugees, theaters of large internal displacement, and producing refugees or having produced refugees is similar in a way to that of Somalia that was also explained. So regional approaches, regional search for solutions, of course respecting protection needs of refugees and displaced, is something that we will continue to encourage. I am happy that several of you have emphasized the need to pursue solutions. Serbia, in particular, stressing how the refugee housing program has been a very important tool to pursue solution for long-term displacement, something that we will continue to support together with the European Union. Et je salue également l'emphase qui a été donnée par le ministre des Affaires étrangères de l'Algérie à l'importance de la prévention des flux des réfugiés et à la résolution des conflits qui causent ces flux. Tout le reste est une réponse. Mais si on arrive à adresser politiquement les conflits, on va certainement obtenir des résultats dans la diminution de ces grands nombres de réfugiés et déplacés que nous voyons partout dans le monde. Also, other delegations, I won't enumerate them all, but Azerbaijan, Somalia spoke about the importance of solutions, and we will continue to work with them in this respect. La délégation suisse a posé une question importante concernant la cohérence de nos programmes, surtout en vue d'une décentralisation des opérations que j'ai expliqué dans mon discours d'ouverture. Et je voudrais assurer cette délégation et tous les autres que cela est bien présent à notre esprit. La cohérence a beaucoup de formes. Vous avez souligné les aspects techniques dans les standards d'assistance, que ce soit dans le domaine de l'eau, de l'assainissement, de la santé, de l'éducation, mais également, et peut-être encore plus, dans le domaine de la protection, où nous devons nous assurer que les standards, les principes de protection dont nous sommes les gardiens dans le monde, soient observés. Et pour cela, dans le processus de décentralisation, on va être particulièrement vigilant qu'il n'y ait pas de fragmentation dans ces différents domaines. Mais merci pour le support, merci bien sûr pour nous héberger, nous avoir comme pays hôte ici à Genève. Et merci aussi pour avoir mentionné ce que je n'ai pas fait dans mon discours, la question si importante de la sécurité du personnel du HCR qui est confronté à des situations dangereuses comme toutes les autres organisations humanitaires partout dans le monde. Voy a concluir con mis felicitaciones a la Guinea Ecuatorial por su importante aniversario de la soberanía nacional. Thank you and have a good lunch and see you afterwards.
Thank you, High Commissioner. We are almost at the point to close this morning's session. However, before doing so, I want to remind you that we start in the afternoon at 3 o'clock with the keynote address by the World Bank Chief Executive Officer. I now give the floor to the Secretariat for some announcement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just two very quick messages, colleagues. First of all, there is a side event on upholding rights in mixed movements, the challenges and responses around detention and trafficking in persons, which will be held in room 12 from 1 to 3 p.m. The second announcement relates to the Nansen Refugee Awards ceremony. I wish to inform you that colleagues from the Nansen Refugee Award team are in the back of the room to help answer any questions you may have about tickets to the ceremony. They will also be available during lunchtime. Thank you very much, Chair.